There was something strange about seeing someone so precise, so intentional, sitting in a place that felt like it had forgotten how to be clean. The diner was half-lit. One of the neon letters outside was flickering, casting a blue pulse over the window like a failing heartbeat. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee and fried eggs lingered longer than the customers ever did. When the bell above the door jingled, nobody looked up. Not at first. Then she walked in. Not rushed, not hurried. Straight-backed, focused. A jacket that wasn't fashionable but functional. Boots worn but polished, hands tucked into her pockets as if they had nowhere else to be. She scanned the room once, not in curiosity but out of habit. Her eyes weren't searching for something, they were clearing the room. She stepped up to the counter. Her voice was steady, low but crisp. Coffee, black, to go. The old man behind the counter. Jasper wiped his hands on a stained towel and punched the order into the register. His eyes drifted up at her, lingered for a second longer than polite, then dropped back to the screen. "That'll be $3.75, he said. She reached into the inside pocket of her jacket, pulled out a debit card. It was the only thing in her pocket, slid it across the counter. Waited. The reader blinked red. Transaction failed. No reaction, no sigh, no frown. Her face didn't even shift. She tilted her head slightly as if recalibrating something invisible, then tried again. Failed. A brief flicker crossed her brow. Not frustration, not embarrassment, calculation. She turned the card over, checked the strip, slid it again. Failed. Jasper cleared his throat, uncomfortable now, but doing his best not to show it. Sometimes the reader acts up when it's cold, he offered, half lie, half mercy. She didn't respond. Slowly, methodically, she slid the card back into her pocket. "Cancel it," she said quietly. Her tone wasn't sharp, wasn't soft either. Just a decision made out loud. She turned, ready to leave, no drama, no explanation. But someone behind her had already moved. A voicemail, calm, certain, spoke from 2 steps back. "Put it on mine." And just like that, the air in the room changed. Even before she turned to look, Harper already knew this wasn't about coffee. It never was. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried a kind of quiet certainty that made everyone in the diner pause. "Put it on mine." Harper turned. He stood 2 steps behind her. Mid-40s maybe. Broad shoulders under a flannel jacket lined with years of work, not fashion. Worn jeans. Boots scuffed from gravel and sawdust. His hands were rough knuckles, pale fingers calloused but steady as he reached into his back pocket, pulling out a wallet that had seen better days. Jasper gave a small nod, tapping the register. "All right. That's fine." He punched a few keys, then slid the paper cup toward Harper like someone defusing a bomb. The man didn't say anything else, just stood there, handed over his card. Waited. Harper's eyes scanned him top to bottom, not in judgment, not even suspicion. It was instinct measuring, assessing. 1 second was all it took, no weapon, no visible threat, just a man. She exhaled quietly, a tiny shift of her shoulders. Almost imperceptible. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know," he replied. His tone was neither friendly nor dismissive, it was simply true. For a moment neither moved. The air between them wasn't awkward, it was just loaded with something unnamed. Jasper cleared his throat, sliding the receipt over. "Name for the order?" he asked. The man didn't look away from her. "Elliot," he answered. Then turning slightly toward the cup added, "And another coffee. Black. For here." Jasper nodded, got it. Harper glanced at the door. She could walk out. That had been the plan, always was. Keep moving, don't linger. But something about him, about the way he wasn't expecting anything back, made her pause. Not soften, not yet. But pause. She reached for the paper cup. "I'll pay you back," she said. "You don't have to. Not the point." Her grip tightened slightly on the cup. His eyes didn't shift. "Suit yourself." Then, almost like remembering how conversations worked, he added, "Safe travels." She didn't reply, just nodded once, sharp and economical, then turned toward the door. Elliot watched as she stepped outside, the bell above the door giving one last reluctant chime. The moment she was gone, Jasper muttered, "Well, that was interesting." Elliot didn't answer. His eyes stayed on the window, watching her walk across the gravel lot toward an old pickup that looked like it had seen better decades. She opened the door, climbed in, but didn't start it. She just sat there. Elliot frowned, fingers tapping lightly against his coffee cup. He told himself it wasn't his business. He told himself again. But even as he tried, he knew something about this wasn't going to leave him alone. The drive home was quiet. Elliot's old truck rumbled along the two-lane road that hugged the river, tires humming against wet asphalt wipers, pushing away the light drizzle that never seemed to stop in this part of Oregon. In the back seat, Leo sat cross-legged, a sketchpad balanced on his knees. The boy was quiet, but not in a restless way. He was always like this, observant, still. A child who noticed more than he ever said out loud. Elliot glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "You okay back there?" Leo didn't look up. "Yeah." The boy's pencil scratched softly against the paper. Not hurried, not messy, just focused. They pulled into the driveway, a narrow stretch of gravel that curved toward the house, tucked between the river and the tree line. The house was small but sturdy. Wood siding faded by years of rain and wind. A porch with a single light that always stayed on after dark. And out back the workshop, Elliot's second home, filled with tools, half-finished projects, and the smell of sawdust. "Come on, bud. Let's get inside. It's getting cold." Leo hopped out, sketchpad still in hand. He followed his dad inside, boots thudding softly against the old wooden floor. Elliot shrugged off his jacket, set it on the hook by the door. Put the kettle on. Routine. Reliable. The kind of rhythm that kept things together when everything else felt uncertain. At the kitchen table, Leo flipped to a new page in his sketchbook. His pencil moved again. Quick lines, careful curves. Elliot poured hot water into 2 mugs, one for tea, one for cocoa, and sat down across from him. "What you working on?" he asked. Leo didn't answer right away. He tilted the paper, slightly shaded a corner, then finally turned it toward his dad. Elliot blinked. It was the bench by the river, the one he had built years ago after everything changed. On the bench sat 2 figures, one small, one taller, both facing the water. But off to the side, near the edge of the drawing, was a third figure, standing, watching. A woman, no face, no details, just presence. "Who's that?" Elliot asked, though he already knew. Leo shrugged. "Just someone," he said. His voice was soft but certain. "Someone waiting." Elliot didn't reply. He just stared at the sketch a little longer than necessary. Somewhere outside, the river kept moving. Always moving. The river didn't rush, it drifted. Slow, steady, like it had nowhere urgent to be. Harper sat on the bench, his bench. She knew that much. No one else would have built something this solid, this deliberate, and placed it right here. Facing the water, away from the road, tucked between two old cedar trees, half hidden but never fully out of sight. Her hands were in her jacket pockets, boots flat against the cold dirt, shoulders squared but not tense, just steady. She wasn't doing anything, not reading, not scrolling, not even pretending to check her phone. She just sat, watching the water move. There was something about rivers, about the way they kept going no matter what. No matter who left, who stayed, who disappeared. A breeze tugged at her collar, cold but not sharp, the kind that reminded you were still here. Behind her, somewhere up the slope, she could hear the faint hum of tools, the occasional clang of metal on wood. Voices carried from far-off places, a car door slamming, a dog barking twice, then silence again. But down here by the water it was quieter, almost like the rest of the world didn't quite reach this far. She glanced down at her boots. The left one was scuffed near the toe, a cut in the leather from something. Didn't matter. Everything wore out eventually. Her gaze drifted back to the water. She tracked a single-leaf orange battered floating past, spinning, tumbling, then vanishing behind a bend. She wondered, not for the first time, how far a person could drift before they disappeared altogether. No answers came. They never did. Somewhere to her right, branches shifted. Not loudly, just enough. She didn't turn her head, only moved her eyes. A boy, maybe 9, thin, shoulders drawn up like he hadn't decided whether to be brave or cautious yet. He stood halfway down the slope, watching her. For a moment neither moved. Then the boy spoke. Quiet, curious, not afraid. "Are you waiting for someone?" Her jaw tensed slightly, not because of the question, because it was fair, direct, the kind of thing adults forget how to ask. She didn't answer. Not right away. Just shifted her gaze back to the water. "Maybe," she said eventually. Her voice was even, careful, the truth, but not the whole truth. The boy didn't reply, didn't move, just stood there, waiting, and for a while so did she. The boy didn't leave. Harper had expected him to. Kids were curious but rarely persistent. Most hovered at the edge of something unfamiliar, then thought better of it and drifted away. But not this one. Leo shifted his weight from one foot to the other, hands buried deep into the pockets of his hoodie. His sneakers scuffed the damp ground, making small arcs in the dirt as if tracing something only he could see. He glanced at her, then at the water, then back at her. "Do you come here a lot?" he asked. His voice was softer this time. Testing. Harper didn't move. Her gaze stayed on the river, her posture unchanged. "Not really," she said. Short, not unfriendly, not inviting either. Leo nodded as if that made perfect sense, as if this was the kind of conversation people had all the time, standing on the slope by the river talking to someone whose name they didn't know. "Dad says the river's different every day, but it always ends up in the same place." For the first time, Harper turned her head, just slightly. Her eyes found him, studied him, not sharply, not dismissively. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it, like someone quoting something they didn't fully understand yet, but wanted to. "You think that's true?" she asked quietly. Leo shrugged. "I don't know. He built that bench, said it was for people who needed to sit still for a while." She let that sit. No answer, no comment. Leo kicked at a small rock, sending it tumbling toward the water. Then he looked at her again. Braver now? Are you? Are you one of those people? Harper's fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. Not visibly. Not obviously, just enough. She inhaled through her nose, held it, let it out slow. You ask a lot of questions, she said. Leo didn't flinch. Yeah, people say that. Neither smiled, neither laughed, but something eased just a fraction in the space between them. Leo shuffled a step closer, then sat down on the edge of the bench. Not right next to her, just close enough to share the view. They sat like that. No more words, only the sound of water moving, of wind threading through the trees, of the world carrying on. Sometimes, that was enough. The crunch of boots on gravel broke the quiet first. Harper didn't turn, not immediately. She knew that sound, knew the rhythm of someone walking with purpose but not aggression. Leo glanced over his shoulder. His face shifted, not surprised, not worried, just something between expectation and curiosity. "Hey, kid," came the voice. Elliot stepped into view, hands in his jacket pockets, shoulders squared against the wind. His gaze flicked to Leo first, checked him like dads do, then shifted to Harper. For a second, no one spoke. The air between them wasn't tense, it was just waiting to see who blinked first. "You've been here a while," Elliot said. "Statement, not accusation?" Harper nodded once. "Simple. Seems that way." Elliot followed her gaze to the river, stared out for a beat, maybe two, then let out a small breath. "Well," he said, shifting his weight, "if you're looking for somewhere, not the bench, I've got a workshop out back. Nothing fancy, dry, warm enough, has power if you need it." She finally turned, met his eyes, not defensive, not grateful either, just steady. Why the question wasn't rude, wasn't sharp, it was clean, direct. Elliot didn't flinch. "Because it's gonna be 34 degrees tonight, and I figure you look like someone who knows how cold feels but doesn't particularly enjoy it." Silence again. Leo watched, saying nothing but leaning slightly forward like kids do when they sense something important is happening. Something not quite meant for them but impossible to ignore. Harper held Elliot's gaze, studied the lines around his eyes, the set of his jaw, the way his hands stayed relaxed but ready. He wasn't offering charity, wasn't offering pity. It was something else, something rarer. An invitation to exist, without explanation, without performance. Her thumb rubbed the edge of the bench, once, twice, then stopped. "You always let strangers sleep in your workshop?" she asked. "Not always," Elliot replied, "but sometimes." A pause, then without ceremony Harper nodded. "All right." Elliot jerked his head toward the path. "Come on, I'll show you." Leo stood too silent but watching. As they walked, he trailed a step behind, hands tucked in his pockets, eyes moving between his dad and the woman who just maybe wasn't a stranger anymore. The workshop sat behind the house, small, weathered, a single window facing the river. Inside a workbench, shelves of tools, a folded camp cot in the corner. Elliot unlocked the door, pushed it open. "It's not much, but it's safe." Harper stepped inside, looked around once. Once was enough. "Yeah," she said quietly. "Safe is good." This morning came slow, not with sunlight because there wasn't much of that in December, just a gradual shifting of the gray, less dark but not exactly bright. The kind of morning that didn't announce itself, it just quietly arrived. Out back, the wind pressed against the tree line, carrying the damp smell of pine and cold earth. Somewhere down by the river, a heron called once. Then silence again. Harper stood by the fence. It wasn't a deliberate choice. Not really. She had stepped outside the workshop to stretch to breathe, then noticed it. A broken post, cracked near the base, leaning just enough to make the whole line sag. It wasn't new damage. It had been like that for a while, ignored because life had other priorities. She rolled her shoulders once, looked around. A hammer leaned against the woodpile nearby, a box of nails. Someone had meant to get to it. Her hands moved before her mind had time to ask why. Grabbed the hammer, checked the nails, bent down, inspected the split in the wood. No gloves. Didn't need them. The cold bit at her skin, but her fingers didn't hesitate. Measured, shifted, set. The rhythm came back fast. Muscle memory from somewhere else, somewhere older, somewhere far. A tap to check alignment, another to brace, then strike, clean, solid. The sound of metal hitting wood echoed sharp against the trees. She didn't rush, didn't dawdle, just worked. Quiet, focused, precise. Halfway through, she paused, straightened, glanced back toward the house. No one watching, no one asking. Good. The wind tugged at her jacket. A strand of hair slipped loose and brushed against her cheek. She ignored it, shifted to the next board, measured, hammered. By the time she finished, the line stood straighter. Not perfect, but whole again. She set the hammer back where she found it, brushed her hands against her jeans, looked at the fence for a long moment. Then, without fanfare, without expecting anyone to notice, she turned, walked back toward the workshop. Inside, the cot was still unmade, the backpack still zipped tight, sitting by the door, like she hadn't really unpacked, like she wasn't sure if she was staying or just passing through. As she pulled the door closed behind her, the wind caught for a moment, slamming it just a little harder than she meant. And the fence stood. The kitchen smelled like roasted vegetables, butter, and something vaguely citrus. Elliot moved with the kind of quiet efficiency that came from years of cooking for exactly one, and then somewhere along the way for two. A pot simmered low on the stove. Bread warmed in the oven. Plates clinked softly as he set the table. Leo sat cross-legged in one of the chairs, pencil tapping against his knee. He wasn't drawing. Not this time. Just watching. At the third seat, an extra pulled from the corner, Harper sat with her hands resting palm down on her thighs. Not stiff, not tense, just measured. It had been a silent agreement. No one invited her. No one asked. But when the smell of dinner drifted toward the workshop and the porch light clicked on, she had stepped inside, not because she felt like a guest, but because maybe it was time to stop pretending she was invisible. Elliot slid a bowl toward her. "Soup's hot," he said simply. Harper nodded. "Thanks." For a while they ate in the kind of silence that wasn't heavy but wasn't exactly light either, just three people sharing space, sharing warmth. It was Leo who broke it. "You fixed the fence," he said, not a question, just a fact. Harper didn't look up. "Yeah." Why, her spoon hovered for half a second. Then she set it down, looked at him, because it needed fixing. Leo chewed on that answer for a moment, then nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Then after a pause, "You know how to do stuff like that, like Dad does." Harper's eyes flicked toward Elliot. He didn't say anything, just kept eating, but his posture shifted, listening now. "I've done a lot of fixing," Harper said carefully, "different kinds." Leo leaned forward, like, "What kinds?" Her fingers traced the rim of her bowl. Thought about lying. thought about silence, then chose something in between. Things that break, she said softly. Sometimes buildings, sometimes other things. Elliot didn't look up, but the pause between bites was just a little too long to ignore. Are you like a builder? Leo asked. His eyes were wide, not intrusive, just curious. Harper smiled, small, almost automatic. Not exactly. Silence again. Then Leo nodded, satisfied with the mystery left intact. Kids were like that. They didn't always need the whole story. Sometimes, just knowing someone knew how to fix things was enough. Elliot stood grabbing the empty bowls. You want more? He asked. Harper shook her head. No. This is good. She meant the soup, maybe. Or maybe not just the soup. The night settled like a heavy quilt, thick, quiet. The kind of quiet that wasn't empty and just full of things unsaid. Harper stood on the porch, hands tucked deep into her jacket pockets. The boards beneath her boots creaked softly when she shifted her weight, but she didn't move much. Didn't need to. From where she stood, she could see through the kitchen window. Inside, Elliot was rinsing dishes, sleeves rolled up, shoulders bent slightly forward the way people do when they're tired but don't mind being tired. Leo sat at the kitchen table, legs swinging under the chair, head tilted down over a sheet of paper. Drawing. Always drawing. The glow from the ceiling light spilled warm across the floor. Soft. Steady. It wrapped around the boy, caught the lines of Elliot's face, reflected against the worn cabinets and the chipped tile countertop. It looked like something solid, something reliable, something that had nothing to do with her. Harper's breath clouded in the air. She watched it disappear, watched it come back again, over and over like waves. The wind brushed against her collar, cold but not sharp, just enough to remind her. She was still out here, not in there. She didn't blame them. No one had drawn that line except her. Her fingers grazed the edge of the porch railing, rough wood beneath her skin, a nail sticking up just enough to catch. She pressed her thumb against it, hard, held it there until the sting felt real. She wasn't sure what she was waiting for. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Inside, Elliot dried his hands, said something to Leo that Harper couldn't hear, whatever it was in Subom. It made the boy laugh, small, soft, but real. That sound hit her harder than she expected, not like a punch, not like a wound, more like a door she hadn't noticed was closed, cracking open, just a little. Harper pulled her hands from her pockets, crossed her arms, shifted her gaze back to the river. The dark line of water still moving. Always moving. The house behind her stayed warm. Bright. Alive. She didn't step toward it. Didn't walk away either, just stood. Right there, somewhere between. The ladder wobbled just enough to keep things interesting. Elliot pressed one boot against the bottom rung, steadying it as Harper climbed higher. In her hands, a socket wrench and a handful of bolts. In her eyes, a focus so sharp it could cut steel. Boards cracked, she said, tapping the underside of the porch roof with the wrench. Half rotted through. Yeah, Elliot replied. Knew it was coming. Neither said much beyond that. Words weren't necessary when there was work to be done. He handed up a replacement board, weather-treated pine. Heavy. Harper grabbed one end, shifted it into place, braced her knee against the frame. Smooth, precise, no wasted movement. Hold it steady, she said. Elliot didn't answer, just did it. The drill whined once, twice. Then the board sank flush against the frame like it belonged there all along. For a moment, silence. Only the sound of wind brushing through the trees, the distant murmur of the river, the creak of wood settling under new weight. "You've done this before," Elliot said finally. Harper adjusted her grip. "More times than I can count," he almost asked. Almost. But something about the way she said it, flat functional without offering, made him hold it back. Instead, he reached for the next bolt. Hand. She held hers out without looking. Palm up. Open. A rhythm forming. Familiar. Easy. Funny how fixing things had a way of smoothing the edges between people. The work continued. Boards replaced. Nails set. Shingles realigned. No small talk, no over-explaining, just the clean language of task and trust. At one point, Elliot glanced up, watched as Harper balanced her weight, shifted tools, leaned into the work like she'd been doing this her whole life. And maybe she had, not this roof, but something like it, something broken, something that needed holding together even if it wasn't hers to begin with. When the last screw bit into place, Harper exhaled a breath deeper than the task deserved. She climbed down the ladder, wiped her hands against her jeans, looked up at the roof. "Won't leak now," she said. "Shouldn't," Elliot agreed. They stood side by side for a moment. No eye contact. Just two people looking at something fixed, something finished. Harper shoved her hands into her pockets. "It's good work." Elliot nodded. "Yeah, it is." Neither said thank you. Neither needed to. The roof wasn't the only thing holding better now. The rain had eased, but the clouds stayed heavy. Inside the workshop, the air smelled like sawdust and old coffee. Light from the single window pooled across the workbench, catching the edges of wood shavings scattered like tiny curls of paper. Leo sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchpad balanced on his knees, pencil moving in slow, deliberate lines, not rushed, not messy, careful, thoughtful. The way he always drew when something mattered more than he could explain. His tongue pressed against the corner of his mouth, a habit Elliot had always recognized. His son's version of focus, of trying to capture something slippery before it drifted away. On the page, the bench, the one by the river. 3 figures sat on it, not detailed, no faces, just shapes, silhouettes. But the arrangement was unmistakable. A man, a boy, a woman, all facing forward toward the water. Together, no one was standing apart this time. Leo paused, studied the empty space above the figures, then added something small. A single bird, mid-flight, not leaving, not arriving, just moving. His pencil hovered, then pressed lightly to shade the tree line, the river, the edges of the world as he understood it. When he finished, he stared at it for a long moment, his fingers tracing, not touching the lines he'd made. Then, without looking around, he stood, walked to the far wall of the workshop, found a patch of bare wood between an old shelf and the window. Carefully, he pulled a roll of masking tape from the workbench, tore off 2 strips, pressed the drawing flat against the wall. It hung there slightly crooked, edges curling just a little, but it stayed. Leo stepped back, looked at it, nodded once, quiet, certain. In the doorway behind him, Elliot leaned his shoulder against the frame, arms crossed, watching, not interrupting. Harper stood beside him, hands deep in her pockets. Her gaze tracked the boy, then the drawing, then the way the boy looked at the drawing. Neither adult said anything, but something shifted, not loudly, not obviously. Just a thread, pulled tight, tying something together that had until now floated loose. Leo turned, saw them, smiled, small, brief, but real. Then he walked past, back outside, like it was nothing, like it was everything. Harper sat on the edge of the cot, elbows on her knees, fingers turning the small brass compass over and over in her hands. It was old, heavy for its size, the kind of thing built before plastic existed. The glass was scratched, the brass casing dented on one side. The hinge stuck if you didn't open it just right. She flicked the lid open with her thumb, watched as the needle spun. Not steady, not anchored, just circling. North refused to show up. Harper tilted it, shook it once, tried again. The needle twitched, pointed south, no east, then spun again. She smiled, but it wasn't the kind anyone would call happy. Well, she murmured, voice barely above breath. Figures. Her thumb traced the initials etched into the back, not hers, someone else's, someone long gone. You used to always say, "North is a choice," she whispered, "not a direction." Her fingers tightened around the edges, knuckles pale. You lied. Silence answered, only the ticking of the old wall clock, only the wind brushing against the side of the workshop. She stared at the spinning needle. Let it move. Let it wander. You know, I used to think if you just kept moving, long enough, far enough, you'd end up somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere quieter. Her voice cracked, just a little, but she didn't flinch. Turns out, you take it with you, all of it, the noise, the weight, the pieces that don't fit anymore. The needle caught, stuttered, then spun again. Harper laughed, quiet, bitter, almost gentle. I get it, she said softly. No north, no map, just here. Her gaze drifted toward the window, toward the river, the house, the faint glow of the porch light that someone, probably Elliot, had switched on without thinking. Or maybe, because he was thinking. Her fingers loosened. Slowly, carefully, she closed the compass, snapped the lid shut, held it in both hands like something fragile, something dangerous. She sat there, breathing, letting the silence settle. Then just as softly, I don't know if I'm supposed to stay. The words fell into the air like stones into deep water. No splash, no echo, just gone. She looked down at the compass again, ran her thumb across the brass one more time, then set it on the shelf beside her backpack. Didn't put it away, didn't pocket it, just left it there for now. It started with the wind, not the usual kind, the soft breath of the river or the lazy push of cold air through the trees. This was different, sharper, heavy. It moved like something looking for cracks. Branches groaned, loose shingles rattled. The sky, already iron gray all day, dropped lower. Closer, as if the clouds themselves were leaning in. Inside the house, Elliot paced, checked the windows, pulled the flashlight from the drawer, even though he told himself it probably wasn't going to get that bad. Leo, he called. Where's your inhaler? Leo's voice floated back from the living room, by the couch. Elliot grabbed it, checked it, half full. Enough. He hoped. Then, the first crack of thunder, close, loud enough to shake the glasses in the kitchen cabinet. Harper stood on the porch, one hand gripping the post, scanning the sky. Her jaw clenched, not at the weather. Not exactly. Something about the weight in the air, the way the pressure shifted, set her nerves on edge in a way that had nothing to do with storms. She turned when she heard it. A cough. Not once, not twice. Repeated. Tight. Shallow. Leo sat on the couch, arms wrapped around his knees, chin tucked in, trying to breathe like someone remembering how. Elliot was already beside him, kneeling, holding the inhaler. Breathe, buddy, come on. Slow in. Leo shook his head, chest tight, shoulders rising too fast. Then the lights flickered, twice, and died. A low hum vanished from the room, the refrigerator, the heater. The world got smaller. Harper was through the door before Elliot even noticed her move. Fast, quiet, controlled. Where's the backup, she asked, scanning the dark. Flashlight, drawer. She didn't wait. Found it, clicked it on, passed it to Elliot without a word. Her hands were already moving, clearing the coffee table, grabbing a pillow, dropping to her knees beside Leo. Sit him upright, she said. Not a question, not a suggestion, a fact. Elliot moved without thinking, shifted Leo, braced his back against the couch. Leo gasped, fought, fingers clawing at nothing. Harper's voice didn't rise, didn't panic. In through the nose, out through the mouth, short, sharp, follow my hand. She raised her palm fingers, moving in sync with the rhythm she wanted. Like this. In, out. Count it. Elliot held the flashlight, his knuckles white, his eyes locked on his son, and on the woman who somehow was the only one not unraveling. Outside, the wind screamed. The storm hammered the roof. Inside, everything hung on the space between one breath and the next. His airways closing, Harper said. Calm, precise, not a hint of panic. We don't have long. Elliot gripped the flashlight tighter. The roads flooded, blocked. You know that. Her eyes flicked toward the window. Another gust slammed against the house. Something metal toppled outside. Didn't matter. No ambulance, no help coming. We do this here. Leo wheezed, sharp, high, shoulders trembling, his hands clenched into fists pressing against his chest like he could hold it open with willpower alone. Harper dropped to one knee, opened her jacket. Elliot, find me. Clean towels, a pot, water, now. He didn't argue, bolted toward the kitchen. She shifted, knelt closer to Leo. Her voice dropped, lower, slower, no edge. Just command softened into something that felt almost safe. Look at me, kid, right here. Her hand tapped his knee. Forget the storm, forget the noise, just me and you. Okay, Leo blinked, eyes wide, terrified. But he nodded, or tried. Good. She guided his hands. Arms here, shoulders down. You're gonna breathe with me now. Ready? He gasped, couldn't speak, but his fingers gripped hers like a lifeline. Elliot crashed back into the room. Towels, pot, bottled water. Harper grabbed the pot. Boil it fast as you can, the stove's electric fireplace. Go. Elliot didn't wait. Hauled the pot to the fireplace. Fed kindling under the grate like his life depended on it. Because right now, it did. Harper turned back. Leo, I know it feels like you can't, but you can. You've done harder things, trust me. Her hand moved in rhythm. In, out, short, sharp, count 1, 2, 3. Leo's breath stuttered, fought. But something shifted. Not fixed, not safe, but less wild. Steam rose from the pot. Harper grabbed 2 towels, drenched them, wringed one halfway, then draped it over Leo's chest. Warm, wet, wait. Something for his body to register beyond panic. Breathe through it, she murmured. Good. You're doing good. She rolled the second towel, held it in front of his face. Breathe the heat. Loosen it. Let it help. Elliot knelt beside her now, one hand bracing Leo's back, his other gripping Harper's shoulder like if he let go everything might break apart. For 10 minutes, the world shrank. Nothing existed except the tight, ragged pull of air and the desperate fight to keep it moving. Then, slowly. The edge softened. The rasp gave way to tremors. The panic dimmed. Leo sagged forward, exhausted, not better, not safe, but breathing. Harper sat back on her heels, her hands shaking now but only now, when it was mostly over. Elliot pressed his palm to Leo's back, his voice cracked. "You're okay, buddy, you're okay." Harper wiped her face with the back of her sleeve. "Not okay," she corrected softly, "but stable. For now, it was enough." The fire cracked. Not loud, just steady. Pockets of sap in the pine logs hissed, popped, then fell quiet again. Leo slept, curled against a pillow near the hearth. His breathing wasn't perfect, but it was steady enough. His small frame rising and falling beneath the blanket, fragile but still here. Elliot sat on the floor, one arm draped over his knee. Shoulders sagged not just from exhaustion but from something heavier, something quieter. Across from him, Harper leaned back against the brick, knees drawn up, hands wrapped around a mug of tea neither of them remembered making. For a long time, neither spoke. It was Elliot who broke the silence first, his voice rough, low. "You've done this before, not a question, a fact." Harper didn't answer right away, just let the fire reflect in her eyes a little longer, then one shoulder rose, fell. "Yeah." Elliot's gaze didn't move. This wasn't helping someone breathe. This was field work. She tilted her head, not surprised, not defensive, just quiet. "Something like that," she murmured. Elliot let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "You're not just someone passing through, are you?" Harper's fingers tightened slightly around the mug. Her knuckles paled, but her face didn't shift. "I was," she said. "That was the plan." Silence again, heavy this time, but not threatening. Just a weight that finally had a name. Elliot's eyes dropped to the floor, watched the firelight flicker across the wood grain. "You've patched more than fences," he said softly. Harper inhaled. Let it out slow. "Yeah." She didn't elaborate, didn't explain, didn't have to, because in that moment, Elliot saw it, really saw it. The way she moved when the lights went out, the precision, the calm. The orders not barked but deployed like tools, clean, effective, controlled. No civilian learned that, no traveler carried it that deep in their bones. "You were military," he said finally. Her eyes didn't flinch, but her grip on the mug softened. Was she said? Not anymore. A beat, then quieter, trying not to be. The wind rattled the windows, but inside, the storm had shifted. Elliot nodded, not out of understanding, but out of respect. Then neither said anything, because sometimes just knowing was enough. The storm was gone, not gradually. It was one of those storms that left like it arrived fast without apology. Morning came with sky so clear it almost felt dishonest. Birds returned like they'd never left. The river, swollen and restless, kept moving. On the workshop table, the compass waited. It sat right where Harper had left it, centered, deliberate, a small circle of brass catching the morning light, the kind of object that didn't demand attention but refused to be ignored. Elliot noticed it when he stepped inside, hands still dusted with sawdust from clearing the yard. He wasn't looking for it, but there it was. The lid was shut, smooth, worn from years of hands turning it over and over. For a moment he stood there, just looking. Then curiosity, or maybe something heavier, pulled him closer. He reached out, ran his thumb over the top, then, slowly, flicked it open. The needle twitched, spun, hesitated, then circled again. Lost. Elliot exhaled through his nose. "Yeah," he muttered softly. Figured. His fingers turned it over, and that's when he saw it, etched into the back. Faint, but still there. Letters worn down like they'd been carried for a long time. Not all who wander are lost. The edges of the words were rough, hand-etched, imperfect, but intentional. Elliot traced the letters once, then again. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a truth. Maybe a reminder, maybe a lie someone told themselves long enough that it became both. He set the compass back down, watched the needle spin once more before snapping the lid shut. A shuffle of footsteps behind him. Harper, standing in the doorway, silent, hands shoved deep into her jacket, her expression unreadable. Their eyes met. Elliot didn't say anything right away. Neither did she. But the weight of what passed between them didn't need words. He tapped the compass with one finger. "Yours?" She nodded. Once. Barely. "Yeah." Elliot let out a slow breath. "Fits you." Harper's jaw tensed, then softened. Her gaze dropped to the compass. "It never worked right," she said. "Maybe it was never supposed to," Elliot replied. His voice was quiet, not offering answers, just standing beside the truth. Harper stepped forward, picked it up, rolled it between her palms. For a moment, it looked like she might pocket it, but instead, she set it back down, centered it, left it open, let it spin. The drawer stuck. It always did. The old oak desk in the corner of the workshop had a mind of its own, one of those stubborn things Elliot had meant to fix, but never did. He yanked it once. It gave. Inside, papers, manuals, a broken tape measure, and the map, folded tight, creased 100 times. The kind of map nobody used anymore, real paper frayed at the edges, stained by coffee rings and fingerprints long faded. Elliot unfolded it slowly. It wasn't recent. The roads were wrong, names changed, but the landmarks, mountains, river, those stayed. His eyes scanned it. Then he saw it. Near the bottom corner, a red circle, hand-drawn, not perfect, not careful, just deliberate. No town marked there, just a patch of empty forest, hills. Back roads that didn't really go anywhere. Beside the circle was a note, written in small, sharp letters. "If it's still here, then so am I." No signature, no date, just that. Elliot's thumb brushed over the words. His chest tightened, but not from fear. From something else, something heavier. A memory stirred, not fully formed, just a fragment. The way Harper scanned the tree line, always calculating exits. The way her hands moved when she fixed the fence like someone used to setting perimeter wire, not nails. The way she disappeared and reappeared, like moving between worlds, was second nature. This wasn't just a mark on paper. It was a tether, a fallback, a place chosen for when nowhere else fit. A place to disappear, without being lost. Elliot folded the map halfway, pressed his palm flat against the circle, let the silence of the workshop settle around him. Behind him, the wind shifted, somewhere in the distance. A crow called. He didn't speak, didn't move, but one thought pressed louder than the rest. She hadn't given this to him, she hadn't told him anything, but she hadn't hidden it either. A line left half drawn, a door half open. Elliot refolded the map, slipped it into his jacket pocket. Didn't look back at the drawer, didn't close it. Then he stood there for a long time, staring at the wall. At the compass still spinning on the table, at the drawing Leo had taped up, and at the empty space where someone might stay. Or might already be gone. The workshop felt emptier, not in a dramatic way, just quieter. The tools still hung in their places, the smell of sawdust still lingered. The bench still sat by the river, tilted slightly forward like it always had. But the air had changed. Elliot stood by the window, arms crossed, watching nothing in particular. Just the road, the tree line, the space where someone should have been. Leo sat at the workbench. His sketch pad was open, but the pencil hadn't moved in 10 minutes. His hand hovered, then dropped. "You think she left for good?" His voice was soft, careful, like saying it too loud might make it more true. Elliot didn't answer right away. His jaw worked once, twice. Then he exhaled. "I don't know." A beat. Then Leo spoke again. "Do we wait?" Silence stretched thin, long enough to feel it. Elliot pushed off the window frame, walked to the corner, pulled the map from his jacket, unfolded it, flattened it on the table between them. His finger tapped the red circle, the handwritten note. Leo leaned in, eyes tracing the lines, the curves of roads that barely existed. His brow furrowed. "Where's that back country?" Elliot said. "Forest roads, almost off the grid. Do you think she wants us to find her?" Elliot stared at the map, at the note, at the empty space where names should have been but weren't. "I don't know if she wants it," he said slowly, but she didn't hide it. Leo looked up, eyes searching his father's face. Then, "We should go." No hesitation, no doubt, just fact. Elliot nodded. "Yeah, I think we should." He folded the map again, slipped it back into his jacket. His hands didn't shake. But there was something behind the movement, something like decision, something like relief. Leo stood. "Do we need to pack snacks?" Elliot almost smiled. Almost. "Yeah, kid, we'll pack snacks." They moved without rushing, but without dragging either. A quiet rhythm. Jackets, flashlights, water. The old thermos that never kept coffee hot but felt wrong to leave behind. At the door, Elliot paused. Looked back once, at the drawing still taped to the wall. 3 figures on a bench, a bird mid-flight. He didn't take it down, didn't touch it. "Let's go," he said. Leo pulled the backpack over his shoulder. "Okay," and together, they stepped outside, not chasing, not searching, just going. Because sometimes the only way to find someone is to show them you're willing to be found too. The forest was quieter out here, not silent, just deeper. The kind of quiet that isn't empty. Birds, wind through pine. The occasional groan of a tree leaning just enough to remind the world it was still alive, tucked between 2 ridges. The cabin stood. Small, weathered, hand-built. Not pretty but strong. Logs stacked tight. Roof patched with tin sheets that caught the sunlight like dull silver. A narrow chimney leaned slightly west, sending a soft trail of smoke into the sky. And there, on the front porch, Harper, kneeling, focused, both hands steady as she measured a length of cedar plank. Pencil in her mouth, square in one hand. She wasn't rushing, she wasn't killing time. She was building something simple. A chair, not fancy, 4 legs, a backrest, no curves, no decoration, just a place to sit, a place to stay. Her hammer tapped, not hard. Gentle strikes to set the nails before driving them home. A rhythm, tap, tap, crack. She paused, checked alignment, adjusted, moved on. The pile of tools beside her wasn't much. A handsaw, a dented tape measure, a can of screws that had been half rusted shut until yesterday. But it was enough. She leaned back on her heels, rolled her shoulders once, let her hands fall to her sides. The chair stood upright now, a little crooked. The legs weren't perfectly even, but it would hold. Yeah, it would hold. Harper reached out, ran her palm over the top edge, felt the grain, the roughness, the places where the sander didn't quite catch. She sat down, slowly, testing. The wood groaned, settled, and held. Her eyes drifted forward, past the clearing, past the split in the trees where the narrow path disappeared back toward the world she'd left behind. For a moment she just sat. No tools in her hands, no task, no forward motion, just sat. Her gaze dropped to the ground, to the footprints in the dirt, some old, some new. Hers dear, a raccoon maybe, life, moving around her whether she noticed or not. She breathed, slow, even. Let her hands fall open against her knees. Didn't think about tomorrow. Didn't calculate the next move, just sat. Because sometimes the hardest thing wasn't running, wasn't surviving. It was staying still, letting the ground hold you, letting the chair hold you, letting yourself hold. The sound came first, not loud, not rushed, just deliberate. Footsteps on pine needles, the soft crunch of boots finding their way where no real path existed. Harper didn't move, didn't turn her head, just listened. She knew those footsteps, knew the weight of them, the rhythm, the pause between each step like someone scanning, reading the land before deciding where to land next. Her hand rested on the arm of the new chair, fingers curling around the rough edge, not gripping, just anchoring. Then eye through the split in the trees and two shapes. Elliot, backpack slung over one shoulder, shoulders squared but not tense, his gaze steady, focused, and beside him, Leo, smaller, quieter, his hands deep in his jacket pockets, his eyes scanning everything like kids do, half curious, half unsure whether they're supposed to be here or already home. They didn't speak at first, neither did she. Elliot stopped a few feet from the porch. His eyes caught hers. Held, found it, he said simply. Harper nodded. Yeah. No surprise, no tension, like the next chapter of a conversation none of them ever actually started, but always knew they'd finish. Leo stepped forward, kicked at a stick near his boot. Cool place, he said, glancing at the cabin, at the chair, at Harper. She half smiled. Yeah, not bad. Silence settled, but it wasn't awkward, just full. Elliot looked around. This seat taken Harper tapped the edge of the porch. Floors open. He stepped up, sat down, boots stretching out in front of him. Leo followed, dropped cross-legged between them like it was the most natural thing in the world. For a while, none of them said anything. They just sat, watched the wind move through the treetops, watched a pair of crows bicker over something invisible, watched a line of sunlight push its way through the clouds, hitting the far ridge like someone had flicked a switch. No explanations, no questions, because sometimes the answer wasn't words. It was showing up. It was staying. Harper leaned back. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time in maybe years. She let herself breathe without measuring the weight of it. Leo's head tilted against Elliot's shoulder. Not asleep, just there. Elliot rubbed his palms together. Nice view, he said finally. Harper nodded. Yeah, it is. The wind shifted. Cooler now, but not cold, and for the first time, the quiet didn't feel like something waiting to break. It just was. The sun dipped lower, catching the tops of the trees in soft gold. Shadows stretched long across the clearing. None of them had moved much. Elliot, Leo, Harper, still sitting, still watching, still there. A crow called in the distance, Leaves rustled. Somewhere deeper in the woods, something bigger, maybe a deer, cracked a branch and disappeared before anyone could care enough to look. Harper shifted, just slightly. Her hands rubbed against her knees like she was working out a thought before it said itself out loud. Elliot noticed, but he didn't push. Leo sat quiet, tracing lines in the dirt with a stick. For a long moment, no one filled the air. Then Harper spoke. Low, flat, careful, you know. Her gaze stayed forward, on the trees, not on them. I used to be good at leaving. Elliot didn't answer. Just listened. Did it for years, Harper continued. Never unpacked, never stayed long enough for anything to matter. Her thumb scraped at a splinter on the edge of the chair. It was easy. Safer that way. If you don't stay, you don't lose anything when you go. The wind picked up, pushed at her jacket. She pulled it tighter. But her voice dropped, just enough that Elliot leaned in half an inch to catch it. I'm not good at leaving anymore. The words sat there, heavy, simple, true. Leo looked up, didn't say anything, just smiled, small. The kind kids give when something fits, even if they don't totally understand why. Elliot let the silence breathe, let it fill every corner of the clearing. Then, softly, yeah, he said, me neither. Harper chuckled once, quiet, shook her head. Guess that makes us something. Elliot tilted his head. Yeah, something. No one defined it. No one needed to. The sun dipped lower, the shadows grew longer, but none of them stood, none of them moved, because right now, no one needed to. The drive back was quieter than the drive in, not heavy, not awkward, just settled. The road curved through the hills. Pines bowed over the gravel like sentinels watching them pass. The river showed up now and then, winding alongside, catching pieces of sunlight between the trees. No one said much. Leo half dozed in the back seat, head tilted against his backpack. Elliot kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other tapping against his thigh, not nervous. Just thinking. Harper sat in the passenger seat. One knee pulled up, jacket tucked around her. Eyes not on the road, but on the way the trees blurred past. It didn't feel like leaving. It felt like going home. By the time they pulled into the gravel drive, the sun was leaning heavy toward the west. The workshop stood just where they left it. The house, too. Familiar, ordinary, beautiful in a way none of them had noticed before. But it was the bench that caught Harper's eye first, down by the river. Same spot, same angle, only different. The backrest, new, clean, cedar planks sanded smooth, fastened tight, and carved across the top rail by hand, rough but deliberate, 4 simple words. A place to stay. Harper stepped out of the truck, walked down to it without thinking. Her boots kicked up dust that hadn't settled from the wind. She ran her hand over the carving, let her fingers trace each letter. Felt the ridges, the intention behind them. Elliot stood a few feet back. Started it before he said quietly. Didn't finish until... I guess I knew why I was building it. Harper didn't turn, just nodded. It's good work. Leo bounded down the hill, dropped onto the bench like he'd done it 1,000 times. His legs swung, his shoes knocked against the frame. It fits, he said, grinning. Way better now. Elliot chuckled, sat down beside him, looked up at Harper. Seats open. She paused, just for a second. Then lowered herself onto the bench. Shoulders relaxed, back pressed against the new rail. It held. No words for a while, just the river, the wind. the sound of leaves shaking loose in the late afternoon. Elliot stretched his arm along the top rail, let his fingers brush just barely against Harper's shoulder. Not a claim, not a question, just there. Harper didn't pull away. Her gaze followed the water, the sunlight, the place that somehow had made space for her without asking her to deserve it first. A place to stay. Yeah, it was. The kitchen smelled like something warm, something simple. Garlic, butter, bread crisping in the oven. Elliot stirred a pot on the stove, humming under his breath. Not loud, not even really a tune. Just the sound of someone who didn't realize they were content. Harper stood near the counter, drying dishes without being asked, without being told, like it was something she'd always done here, even if that wasn't true. Leo rummaged through his backpack. Papers rustled, pencils clattered. His small hands shuffled past notebooks and wrappers until... Found it, he said, half to himself. He crossed the room, climbed onto the stool near the pantry, reached up high, to the same spot where the old clock hung, pulled a roll of masking tape from the shelf. Elliot glanced back. "What's that, bud?" Leo grinned. "Nothing. You'll see." Harper wiped the last plate, turned, watched as Leo pressed something flat against the wall, smoothed the edges, tore off strips of tape with his teeth, patted them into place like it was the most important job anyone had ever given him. She stepped closer, tilted her head. It was the drawing, the one from the workshop, the bench by the river, 3 figures sitting side by side, a bird in flight above them, only something was different now. A 4th figure, small, perched on the arm of the bench, a cat maybe, or something that looked suspiciously like a raccoon, scribbled, lopsided, perfect. Beneath the drawing, in big, uneven letters, Leo had written, "Us." Harper blinked, once, twice. Her fingers tightened around the dish towel without meaning to. Then, slowly, something shifted. Her shoulders softened. Her mouth pulled first tentative and then inevitable into a smile. Not forced, not polite. Real. The kind that starts slow, spreads without permission. The kind that doesn't come from the mouth at all, but from someplace deeper. Leo turned. "You like it?" Harper nodded. "Yeah, kid, I do." Elliot wiped his hands on a towel, walked over, rested his hand on Leo's shoulder. "Looks right to me." No one said anything more, didn't need to. The picture stayed. So did they. The afternoon leaned toward evening, not hurried, not rushed, just the kind of slow fade where the light softens, the air cools, and the world exhales. Down by the river, the bench stood, same spot, same angle, same words carved along the back, a place to stay, and on it, 3 figures. Elliot, Harper, Leo. No one spoke. No one needed to. Leo sat in the middle, legs tucked under him, his shoes muddy from something only he cared about earlier. His head leaned against Harper's arm, not asking permission, not needing it. Harper sat still, hands resting loosely in her lap. Her gaze traced the water, the way it moved around rocks, around roots, always forward, but never in a hurry. Her shoulders weren't tight anymore. Her jaw didn't lock like it used to. She just sat. Elliot stretched his legs out in front, boots crossed at the ankle. One hand rested lightly along the back of the bench. Not reaching, just there. The wind stirred the leaves. Somewhere upriver a fish jumped. Ripples spread, faded. The air smelled like damp earth and wood smoke. No big conversations, no heavy confessions, just quiet. but not the kind of quiet that comes from something missing. The other kind, the full kind, the kind that only shows up when nothing has to be said, because everything's already understood. A crow passed overhead. Leo followed it with his eyes, then pointed but didn't speak. Harper saw it too, nodded once. Elliot chuckled under his breath. No reason, just because it felt like a good time for it. Harper glanced at him, raised an eyebrow. What he shook his head, smiled. Nothing. Leo sighed. Not tired, not bored, just that kind of sigh kids do when their whole body relaxes at once. Then he leaned a little heavier against Harper's side. She didn't shift, didn't correct it, just let him. The river kept moving, the wind kept moving. And for the first time in a long time, none of them felt like they had to. They stayed, not because they had nowhere else to be, but because this was enough. The bench by the river is different now. It has a backrest. 4 simple words carved into the wood, a place to stay. And maybe that's all any of us are really looking for. A place, a person, a moment that holds. No big promises, no perfect endings, just the quiet choice to stay together. And if this story sat with you, even for a little while, maybe consider tapping like or subscribing. Not for the numbers, not for the algorithm, but because, like that bench by the river, it's nice to know someone's still here, still listening, still staying. Thank you for being here.